I still remember the smell of lilies that morning, the flowers I had personally picked for my bouquet. My dress shimmered softly under the church lights, and my hands trembled as I held them together, waiting. I had dreamed about this day since I was a little girl. The music played, the guests stood, the doors opened, but the man I was supposed to marry never walked in. The whispers started spreading like wildfire. Someone gasped. Another guest muttered, "What's going on?" My heart thudded in my chest so hard it felt like my ribs would crack. I looked at my mother, her face pale, trembling, clutching her purse like it could anchor her to the ground. And then, behind her, I saw my aunt, Carolyn. She wasn't crying. She wasn't shocked. She was smiling. A slow, quiet, satisfied smile. Caroline leaned closer to my mother and whispered, not low enough for me to miss it, "I told you she was cheating. Some girls just can't stay loyal." The words hit me like a gunshot. My legs almost gave out. I took a step back, clutching my bouquet like it could hold me together. My mother turned toward her, stunned, whispering, "Caroline, what are you saying?" But my aunt just sighed dramatically, pretending to look heartbroken. "I tried to warn you, Lydia. Ethan deserves better. Poor boy, imagine how humiliated he must feel." Poor boy? He left me standing there, in front of 200 people. He humiliated me in front of family, friends, co-workers. But Caroline, my own aunt, was comforting him. That's when I realized she knew. She knew he wasn't coming. I stumbled out of the aisle, my veil catching on a chair. My best friend, Mia, rushed to me, her voice trembling. "Haley, what happened? Is he okay? Did someone call him?" I could barely breathe. "He's not coming," I whispered. "He's not coming, Mia." Outside the church, the sky was too bright, mocking. Photographers lowered their cameras, unsure what to do. Guests whispered, some pretending not to stare, others openly pointing. I wanted to disappear. The laughter, the decorations, the flowers, all of it suddenly looked like props in a cruel play. And behind me, Caroline's heels clicked sharply on the marble floor as she walked toward the church doors, her voice just loud enough to carry, "I told him the truth, but he had to see it himself. Poor Ethan." I spun around, my throat burning. "You told him what?" She froze, then gave me that same pitying look she'd given me since childhood. "Haley, don't embarrass yourself further. Ethan found out things a man can't forgive." My mother stepped between us, her voice shaking. "Caroline, stop it. Today is not the time." Caroline raised a hand, cutting her off with theatrical sorrow. "I just didn't want my nephew-in-law to live a lie. Maybe someday you'll thank me." I couldn't speak. I wanted to scream that I wasn't guilty, that I hadn't done anything wrong. But my throat locked. Tears blurred my vision. All I could manage was a whisper. "You destroyed everything." She tilted her head slightly and said, in the calmest, coldest tone, "Sweetheart, you did that yourself." Mia grabbed my arm, pulling me back as the church doors closed, and the sound of murmurs filled the air. I ripped off my veil and threw it to the ground. It landed in the dirt, half covered in dust, like my dignity. I felt hollow, numb. The next morning, the newspapers printed my smiling photo from the engagement announcement with the caption, "Bride left at the altar." My phone buzzed endlessly with sympathy texts and gossip. My social media flooded with fake concern and real curiosity. But one post stood out. From Caroline Pierce, a simple caption under a photo of white roses. "Truth always wins." That's when I knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a setup. She had planned it. Every lie, every whisper, every concerned word about Ethan's faith in me. All part of her twisted script. People said time heals humiliation, but it doesn't. You just learn to wear it differently. Like a scar under makeup. For weeks, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. My mother tried to reach Ethan, but he wouldn't answer. He had already chosen his truth, and his truth came straight from Caroline's mouth. Then, 3 months later, the final knife came. A wedding announcement appeared online. Ethan Blake and Caroline Pierce, my aunt, my fiancé, married. The comments said things like, "Love finds its way," and "they were meant to be." I sat there, reading it over and over, until my chest physically hurt. Everyone expected me to explode, to show up, to make a scene. But I didn't. I went silent. I let them live their fairy tale. let them laugh at my pain, because I knew something they didn't. The truth always leaves traces, even when lies shine brighter for a while. And a year later, when Ethan called me sobbing, saying, "Haley, what kind of monster did I marry?" I finally smiled, because I had waited for that moment, not to win him back, but to prove that no one destroys the truth forever. Before everything fell apart, my life was peaceful, almost storybook perfect. I lived in a small town outside Columbus, Ohio, in a cozy 2-bedroom house with white shutters, a little garden, and a porch swing where Ethan and I used to drink coffee on Sunday mornings. I was a graphic designer freelancing from home, and he was a civil engineer working for a local firm. Our schedules were busy, but somehow we always made time for each other. Ethan was the kind of man people instantly liked. Calm, dependable, with that quiet smile that made you feel safe. He had this habit of placing his hand gently on my back whenever we crossed the street, like he was always protecting me. When we got engaged, everyone said, "You two are perfect together." I believed it. So did my mother, but not. Everyone was happy. My aunt, Caroline Pierce, had been a part of my life since I was a child. She was my mother's older sister. Elegant, confident, the kind of woman who always entered a room like she owned it. She never married, though she loved to say, "Men were never brave enough to handle me." For years, she had this strange attachment to Ethan. When we first introduced them at my parents' anniversary dinner, she complimented him endlessly. "Such manners, such posture. Haley, you've done well," she'd said, laughing, but her eyes lingered too long. At first, I thought it was harmless admiration. Later, I realized it was envy, disguised as affection. She often compared us, her failed romances against my engagement, her fading charm against my youth. But whenever she made sharp comments, she wrapped them in sweetness. "Enjoy this time, Haley," she'd say over wine. "Men adore women who make them feel needed, but when you get too successful, well, they look elsewhere." I'd laugh it off, pretending I didn't notice the bitterness behind her tone. My mother, Lydia, always defended her sister. "She's just lonely, sweetheart. Caroline's heart is good. She loves you." I wanted to believe that. Family, after all, meant everything to me. Ethan liked her too. He found her charming and funny. Sometimes, when we had family dinners, he'd talk with her for hours about travel, books, or business. I never thought much of it. Why would I? She was my aunt. But slowly, Caroline began to cross boundaries that only made sense in hindsight. She'd call Ethan directly for help. "My kitchen sink's leaking. Could you come take a look?" Or she'd text him after work. "You were so insightful tonight at dinner, Ethan. Wish more men thought like you." When I mentioned it, he'd smile and say, "She's just being friendly, Haley. Don't overthink it." And I didn't. I trusted him. At the same time, Caroline started planting little seeds of doubt, the kind you don't notice growing until they strangle everything. During a family lunch one Sunday, she leaned close and whispered, "You're lucky Ethan's patient. Not every man would tolerate a woman who spends so much time on her laptop. He must get lonely." I remember blinking, confused. "What are you implying?" She smiled, stirring her tea. "Oh, nothing, dear. Just saying, keep an eye on your priorities. Relationships need attention." That night, I told Ethan about it. He laughed. "Your aunt has a flair for drama. Ignore her." So I did, but she didn't stop. Over the next few months, Caroline became more involved in the wedding planning. Too involved. She offered to handle the catering, to take the stress off me. She recommended photographers, florists, even the band. My mother was thrilled to have help, but something about Caroline's enthusiasm felt off. I brushed it aside because the bigger picture was beautiful. I was marrying the love of my life. Every evening, Ethan would bring me flowers, kiss my forehead, and say, "We're going to build the best life together, Haley. I can't wait to call you my wife." I held on to those moments. I told myself, this is real. This is love. Then came the first sign, a phone call from one of Ethan's friends saying he couldn't make the bachelor party because of the rumors. Rumors? When I asked Ethan, he looked uneasy but shrugged it off. "Someone said they saw you having lunch with another man last week. Don't worry, I know it's nonsense." That other man was my client. We'd met to discuss a project. But still, A tiny crack formed in the trust between us. Later that night, I noticed Caroline smiling while scrolling on her phone, then glancing at Ethan. I should have known. I should have asked questions. But love makes you blind, and family makes you silent. Even when my best friend, Mia Clark, warned me, "Something's off with your aunt. I don't like the way she talks about Ethan," I laughed. "She's dramatic. You know how she is." Looking back, I realize I wasn't naive. I was kind. I believed in people. I believed that good intentions couldn't coexist with cruelty. But in Caroline's world, kindness was a weakness. And as my wedding day drew closer, the storm she had been quietly building was about to break. Perfectly timed, perfectly planned, and aimed directly at the altar where I would stand alone. It started quietly. So quietly that I didn't even recognize it as the beginning of my downfall. About 6 weeks before the wedding, Ethan began changing. His texts grew shorter, his voice colder. He'd sit beside me on the couch, eyes glued to his phone, barely responding when I spoke. At first, I thought it was work stress. Engineers often had deadlines that consumed them, but then I saw the way he started looking at me, like he was studying me, not loving me. One night, I reached for his hand. "Ethan, are we okay?" He hesitated before answering. Yeah, just tired, long week." But I could feel it, the distance. Something invisible but heavy hung between us. A few days later, while I was at my mother's house finalizing table settings, Ethan called. His voice was sharp. "Where are you?" "At Mom's," I said, confused. "Why?" "Who's the guy you were with at the cafe yesterday?" My heart dropped. "What, you mean Greg? He's my client. We were reviewing the logo designs." He was silent for a moment, then said, "I got a message. Someone sent me pictures. You looked pretty cozy for a meeting." I froze. "Pictures? Ethan, what pictures?" He didn't reply. The call ended with a cold, "We'll talk later." That night, he showed up at my door with his jaw tight, holding out his phone. There were photos, grainy, poorly lit images of me sitting across from Greg, leaning forward to show him my laptop screen. In one, Greg was laughing, and I had my hand over my mouth, smiling. To anyone else, it looked innocent. But the captions told a different story. "Haley with mystery man again. Late night meetup." They were from an anonymous number. I felt my stomach twist. "Ethan, these are ridiculous. That's just a meeting." He looked torn, like he wanted to believe me but couldn't. "Then why didn't you tell me about it?" "Because it was just work. I didn't think I needed to list every coffee I drink." He rubbed his forehead, sighing. "You're right. Someone's clearly trying to mess with us. I'll ignore it." But he didn't. The next week, more messages arrived, this time with short video clips. Me getting into a cab, a man holding the door for me. Completely innocent moments, but cut and stitched to look suspicious. I didn't know it then, but Caroline had started visiting Ethan under the pretense of checking on him. My mother told me later she'd been bringing him homemade meals and offering advice. "I just want you to be sure, dear," Caroline had told him. "You're like a son to me. Haley's always been impulsive. You know how young women can be." She said it softly, lovingly, poisoning him one drop at a time. When I confronted her about the rumors, she looked genuinely offended. "Haley, why would you think I'd ever say something like that? Your family." Her tone was silky, her eyes wide and innocent. But behind that mask, she was orchestrating everything, feeding Ethan lies while pretending to comfort him. 2 weeks before the wedding, I came home to find Ethan pacing the living room. His phone was in his hand, and he looked like he'd aged years overnight. "What's wrong?" I asked. He turned to me slowly. "Someone sent me a video. You, at a hotel, with another man." I laughed, half in disbelief, half in fear. "That's insane. What hotel?" He showed me the clip. The woman in the video looked like me. Same hair, same build, even wore a similar coat. But her face never turned fully toward the camera. The quality was terrible, but good enough to plant doubt. "Ethan, that's not me," I cried. "You know my coat is blue, not black. Look at the ring. She's not even wearing one." He just shook his head, voice trembling. "I don't know what's real anymore, Haley." That night, he left. No fight, no explanation, just silence. I sat in our living room surrounded by unopened wedding invitations and white roses that now felt like ghosts. I called him 20 times. No answer. I went to my mother's house, desperate, crying into her arms. Caroline was there. She stroked my hair like a comforting aunt and whispered, "Men don't walk away without reason, dear. Maybe he saw something he couldn't unsee." I pulled back, glaring through tears. "What did you do?" She gasped in mock horror. "Haley, how can you even think that?" My mother intervened, pleading, "Enough, both of you, please." But Caroline's expression had already shifted, satisfaction hidden beneath false sympathy. She left that night, kissing my mother's cheek and saying softly, "I just hope Haley learns from this. Some mistakes can't be undone." From that moment, my heart stopped trying to hope. I realized I wasn't losing Ethan. I was losing the version of my life I thought was real. The woman who destroyed it wasn't an enemy or a stranger. She was my own blood. And the worst part? She wasn't done yet. The morning of my wedding was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Instead, it felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, pretending I wasn't about to fall. I woke up before sunrise. My dress hung near the window, glowing faintly in the soft light. My mother bustled around nervously, fixing flowers and answering phone calls. Everyone assumed I was just nervous. No one knew that Ethan hadn't spoken to me for 3 days. No texts, no calls, no explanation. Just silence. Still, I told myself he would come. That love couldn't vanish overnight. That maybe, just maybe, all the poison Caroline fed him would dissolve when he saw me walking down the aisle. But deep down, something inside me already knew. The woman who had raised me on family dinners and fake compliments had destroyed everything. When the makeup artist finished, I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. My smile looked forced, my eyes hollow. I whispered, "You can do this, just breathe." But even my reflection didn't believe me. At 11:10 a.m., the ceremony began. Guests filled the church. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it over the music. My mother kissed my cheek, whispering, "He'll be here. He loves you." And then she turned to Carolyn, who sat near the front row in an elegant cream suit, calm, composed, pretending to wipe a tear from her eye. The music swelled, the doors opened, everyone stood, but the aisle was empty. No groom, no Ethan. For a moment, I didn't move. I just stood there, holding my bouquet, staring at the altar. It felt like time had stopped. The guests began to whisper. My stomach turned cold. My hands started shaking so badly that I nearly dropped the flowers. Then, in that deathly silence, Caroline leaned toward my mother and whispered, not quietly enough, "I told you she was cheating. Some girls just can't stay loyal." My mother gasped, "Caroline, how dare you?" But I didn't hear the rest. The words echoed through the church like a curse. I turned toward my aunt. Her eyes met mine, and for a split second, she smiled. Not a wide smile, just a small, satisfied curl of her lips. It was the smile of victory. That was the moment I broke. Not from heartbreak, but from realization. She wanted this. She had planned this. I stumbled out of the church, veil dragging behind me, my heels slipping on the marble floor. I could hear my mother calling after me, guests murmuring, cameras clicking. But I just kept walking until I reached the parking lot. My friend Mia followed, tears streaming down her face. "Haley, please wait. Maybe there's an explanation." I shook my head. "He's not coming, Mia. He's with her." And I was right. That evening, Ethan posted a single line on social media. "Some truths are hard to face. Thank you, Caroline, for opening my eyes." My phone fell from my hands. My body went cold. My aunt had not only stolen my fiancé, she had convinced the world she'd saved him from me. The next few weeks were a blur. People whispered behind my back. Invitations were returned. Friends stopped calling. Caroline visited my mother often, pretending to check in. I overheard her once saying, "Haley should reflect on her actions. Maybe one day she'll take responsibility." That night, I packed my bags. I left my hometown without a goodbye. No long speeches, no confrontation, just silence. The same silence they'd given me. I moved to Cleveland, rented a tiny apartment, and started taking freelance work again. I spent nights crying into my pillow, wondering how family could turn into an enemy. But eventually, the pain began to settle into something sharper: clarity. I realized I didn't need revenge. People like Caroline create their own destruction. They just take longer to notice it. I promised myself that I wouldn't chase justice or try to prove my innocence. I would wait. I would live. I would let the truth surface when it was ready. My mother called once, months later. Her voice was heavy with guilt. "Caroline married Ethan," she whispered, like saying it out loud would make it less disgusting. I sat in silence for a moment, then said calmly, "They deserve each other." My mother started crying. "Haley, please don't talk like that." I sighed. "No, Mom, I mean it. Two people built on lies will eventually collapse. I just don't want to be under the rubble when it happens." From that day forward, I didn't mention their names again. I poured my energy into rebuilding my business, my confidence, my peace. I even started therapy. Not to move on from Ethan, but to forgive myself for trusting the wrong people. Every so often, I'd see their pictures online. Caroline with her fake smile, Ethan beside her, both pretending to be the perfect couple. It used to sting, but slowly, that sting turned into something else. Pity. Because I knew what they didn't. Lies rot from the inside. I didn't need to fight her. I didn't need revenge. My silence would be the loudest response she'd ever get. And as the months passed, I could feel it. The shift. The way fate starts to rearrange itself when you stop forcing justice and let truth do the work. They thought they'd buried me under shame, but all they did was plant me deeper in the soil where I'd grow stronger roots. And soon those roots would rise, carrying proof of everything she'd tried to hide. It was almost a year to the day since my wedding, the one that never happened. I was sitting on my apartment balcony in Cleveland, watching the city lights flicker when my phone started buzzing. The number looked familiar but strange, the kind you delete but never forget. Ethan. For a few seconds, I just stared at it. My heart started racing, not from love, but from the ghost of it. I hesitated before answering. "Haley?" His voice was trembling. I froze. He sounded broken. The confident man who once accused me like a judge now spoke like someone begging for mercy. "What do you want, Ethan?" I asked, calm but cold. There was a long pause. I heard him take a shaky breath. "Please, just listen to me. I need to see you. Please." I sighed, my stomach tightening. "After everything you did, you don't get to need me anymore." "No, Haley, you don't understand," he blurted out, voice cracking. "It's about Caroline." The name hit me like ice. What about her? He went quiet for a moment, then whispered, "I found something." An hour later, he showed up at my building. He looked nothing like the man I remembered. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair unkempt, his eyes red and hollow. The guilt had aged him. He held a folder in his hands, shaking slightly as he passed it to me. "I was cleaning Caroline's study tonight. She's been acting strange lately. I found this hidden behind her filing cabinet." Inside the folder were receipts, dozens of them, from a casting agency in Cincinnati, each labeled with Caroline's name. My fingers went numb as I read the itemized list. Actor, male, scene, romantic cafe. Actress scene, hotel entrance. 2 extras, park bench photo shoot. And at the bottom of each, her signature, C. Pierce. I flipped to the next document, an email thread between Caroline and the agency director. "Make sure the woman resembles the photo I sent. Same hairstyle and clothes. The boyfriend must look convincing. I'll pay extra for discretion." I could barely breathe. I turned the page, and there it was. My own photograph attached, the one from our engagement party cropped and labeled Reference Target. "Ethan," I whispered, voice shaking. She hired actors? She staged everything?" He nodded, tears rolling down his face. "The photos, the videos, everything. She orchestrated all of it. The fake texts, the rumors, even the one from that anonymous number. It was her." I stood there, gripping the papers so tightly my hands hurt. My chest felt hollow. For a year, I'd blamed myself, replayed every word I said, every move I made, wondering how love could die so fast. But now, standing there, the truth felt both freeing and cruel. Ethan sank onto the couch, his voice breaking. Haley, I'm so sorry. I didn't see it. I was stupid. She said she just wanted to protect me, and I believed her. I thought you were lying to me, but it was her. I didn't say anything. The silence filled the room like thunder. Then he looked up at me, desperate. She told me you cheated, that you laughed about it behind my back. He swallowed hard. Haley, I married her because I thought she was the only person who told me the truth. But she's a monster. She ruined both of us. I stared at him, emotion burning behind my ribs. You married her because it was easier to hate me than admit you were wrong. He flinched. I stepped closer, holding up one of the receipts. Do you have any idea what this cost me? My dignity, my family, my peace? You let her convince you I was a liar, and you never even gave me the chance to speak. He covered his face with his hands. I know. Please, Haley. I'll do anything to make it right. I shook my head slowly. You can't fix something you burn to ashes. He started crying. Not soft tears, but deep, shaking sobs. She's been controlling everything, Haley. My money, my phone, my friends. I feel trapped. I don't even know who I am anymore. I looked at him, the man I once loved, now hollowed by his own choices, and felt something unexpected. Not anger, not love, pity. I said quietly, you wanted to know what kind of monster you married? The kind that destroys others just to feel alive, the kind that mistook control for love. He looked up, eyes red and wet. What should I do? I met his gaze. Leave her. But don't come to me expecting forgiveness. I buried that with the wedding that never happened. He nodded slowly, tears dripping onto the floor. I just needed you to know the truth. I walked him to the door. I always knew it, I said softly. You just didn't. He paused before leaving. You're stronger than I ever was, Haley. I gave a small, sad smile. That's what happens when you survive people who tried to break you. When he left, I sat down and stared at the folder, the receipts, the emails, the proof of everything she'd done. For the first time in a long time, I didn't cry, because justice had finally arrived, not in court, not through revenge, but through the weight of her own lies collapsing in her husband's hands. And I didn't have to lift a finger. I didn't hear from Ethan for months after that night. The last image I had of him was standing in the hallway, clutching the folder of receipts like a confession he'd never stop paying for. When the door closed behind him, it was as if the ghost of my past finally left with him. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the window. For the first time in over a year, I felt it. Peace. Not the loud kind that comes with victory, but the quiet kind that settles in after surviving a storm that should have destroyed you. I spent that day cleaning my apartment, not because it needed it, but because I needed it. I threw out the box of wedding cards I'd kept buried in my closet. I deleted the photos, the playlists, the saved messages, and then I made tea, sat by the window, and realized something simple yet profound. I didn't want revenge anymore. I just wanted freedom. A few weeks later, my mother called. Her voice was heavy. Haley, Caroline and Ethan are getting divorced. I closed my eyes, not surprised, just sad that it took him so long to see what I'd seen years ago. Mom continued, It's been bad. She drained his savings, forged documents under his name, and even tried to sell his car. He's filing for fraud. There was a pause. Then she added softly, Caroline's reputation is ruined. People are finally seeing her for who she really is. For a long moment, I didn't say anything. Then I whispered, That's not justice, Mom. That's gravity. You can't build a life on lies and expect it not to collapse. 3 months later, I received an envelope in the mail. No return address, just my name written in shaky handwriting. Inside was a handwritten letter from Ethan. Haley, you were right. Everything you said that day was true. I filed for divorce and gave her everything. The house, the car, the money. I just wanted peace. I can't undo what I did to you, but I wanted you to know I'm trying to rebuild the man you once believed in. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I needed to tell you this. You were the only truth in my life. Ethan. I read it once, folded it neatly, and placed it in my drawer. Not as a keepsake, but as closure. It was proof that karma doesn't always come loud or fast, but it always arrives. A misapuarai frandiale slowly started to take shape again. I opened a small design studio in the city. Just me, a laptop, and an espresso machine that worked harder than I did. I took on clients, grew my business, even hired a few interns. My apartment, once filled with silence, now buzzed with laughter and the sound of progress. One afternoon, Mia dropped by with lunch. She smiled as she looked around. "You've built all this by yourself, Hales. I'm proud of you." I smiled back. "No, I built this because of them, because pain teaches you what peace really means." She laughed softly, still the philosopher. Maybe I was. But when you've been shattered and somehow survived, your soul starts to crave meaning in everything. That night, I walked to the lake near my apartment, the same spot I'd gone to after my canceled wedding, the night I thought my life was over. The air was cool, the water calm. I whispered quietly, "You tried to destroy me, Caroline, but you only taught me how to never break again." It wasn't anger. It was gratitude disguised as strength. A year later, I saw Ethan one last time. He showed up at my studio unexpectedly, holding a small box. I hesitated before letting him in. He looked healthier, calmer, almost peaceful. He handed me the box. Inside was my old engagement ring. "You should have this," he said softly. It never belonged to her. I looked at the ring for a long moment before closing the lid. "I don't need it," I replied. "It's a symbol of a story that already ended." He nodded, his eyes glistening. "I wanted to tell you something in person. I'm moving to another state, starting over." "Good," I said. "You should." He hesitated at the door. "Haley, thank you for not destroying me when you could have." I smiled faintly. "That's the difference between me and her, Ethan. She wanted control. I wanted peace." He stood there for a moment, then whispered, "You got it." And he left. I never saw him again. Today, I live quietly. My studio is thriving, my mother visits often, and I wake up without that heavy feeling in my chest. Sometimes people ask me how I stayed so calm, how I didn't fight back, how I let them walk away. I tell them the truth. Some battles are won not by striking back, but by standing still long enough for the truth to expose your enemies. Caroline lost everything. Her wealth, her image, her control. Ethan lost his illusions. And me? I gained something they'll never understand. Peace. When I look in the mirror now, I don't see the woman left at the altar. I see the woman who refused to let betrayal define her. And that's the thing about truth. It doesn't scream. It waits. And when it finally arrives, it doesn't destroy you. It frees you. And that was my story. The truth that almost destroyed me, but in the end, rebuilt me. If you've ever been betrayed, remember this: you don't need revenge to win. Sometimes, silence and strength are the loudest answers. People who lie will always be exposed, not by others, but by the weight of their own deceit. I found peace, not by getting even, but by walking away. Because real power isn't in proving who was wrong. It's in showing that you're still standing. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and comment below what part touched your heart the most. And if you want more emotional, true-to-life stories like this one, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next story.